So I am so excited to tell these stories to you guys today. And Christy inviting me and telling me that I could speak for 2 hours, I just thought that was amazing. Because I can totally... Where do you want me to stand?
No, you're good. I'll
Okay.
follow you.
Sorry. I'll try and stay at least close to my water. 2 hours, I can almost tell all the details in 2 hours. Oh, but wait, she told me, come to think of it, she told me I couldn't do 2 hours, that y'all wouldn't stay that long. So, the gauntlet and said, do it quick. So we are going to race through the day of April 19th, 1775. That was 247 years ago. Who has heard of Paul Revere? Okay, so in school for us, when we were growing up, which was like 8 eons ago, we heard that Paul Revere rode, shots were fired, the Revolutionary War was on. But you know what? There was so much more to that day. And so it was 24 hours chock full of heroes and shots fired and decisions made that would affect us today. So we're gonna start out now. 247 years ago today, which was before April 19th, the world, the Americas, were just trembling, vibrating on the king, who lived over in England, had decided that he needed to tax the colonies because the colonies had a really good economy. So he put all these things in place that for the last 10, 15 years up until that day had really ticked off these people that are living in the Americas. For 5 generations, we in the Americas had been free. We could elect our own people. We could raise taxes if we wanted to. That was part of the Constitution of Great Britain, was that you wouldn't be taxed without representation. So there was a lot going on. The British soldiers, we'll call them the Redcoats, they were all over the place, but they were mostly in Boston. They were living in your home. Can you imagine? They actually told your parents, we're going to take... So the parents probably were living in your bedroom, and you were living in the barn. What? And could do nothing about it. You also got to cook for them. And you got to do their laundry. Huzzah. Because doing laundry was so easy in those days. They had told us that our Congresses, our elected Congresses, could no longer meet. So we had to meet in private, in secret. They went into our newspapers and took the printing presses away because we were printing stuff about liberty. So see, everything was just fixing to explode. Well, the guy that was in charge in Massachusetts, his name was General Gage. See how these are the regulars, these are the redcoats, and these are the good guys. So let me stop just for a second. Does anybody know what this guy's name is? Besides Dan. By the end of the day, you will. Cool, huh? So, I got a better picture here. You want to see it? Here he is. By the end of the day, you'll know what his name is. All right, so General Gage is the guy in Boston that's kind of all over Massachusetts. He's been told by the king that he needs to quell this rebellion that's going on. And the best way for him to do it, he's told by the king, is to confiscate the guns belonging to the Americans. And it was really easier to just confiscate their powder, because they all used muskets. They had to load their own bullets, if you will, and they had to confiscate their powder. That would put an end to this business. So General Gage heard that there was a stockpile of ammunition, cannon, muskets, all kinds of stuff in Concord. Now, Concord is 18 miles, here's Concord, 18 miles from Boston. And so he gathered his people the night before to send them out to Concord to confiscate their guns, anything that they could use for war. Well, the Sons of Liberty, Dr. Warren in Boston, he was like the head spy dude. You've probably heard of him. You've heard of him. He got wind of this mission that was going to go out on the 19th, the next morning, and he sent for his 2 riders. One of them, who did we talk about already? The other one was William Dawes. Now, they had already planned this all out. If they needed to get the word out, these 2 guys would ride, and they would stop at all the towns, and they would get the message out, and then those towns would send people out, and they'd ring church bells, and they'd get the word out any way they could. Now, they also had Twitter and Facebook. So you know, so Dr. Prescott got on there and put messages so that everybody would know. So Paul Revere, he had to stop on his way across the back bay. He went this way. He stops at the Old North Church. Does anybody know what he did? He didn't ring the bell. That would have caused too much commotion. He put 2 lanterns in the steeple of, well, had 2 people do it, in the steeple of the Old North Church. Now, they had to climb up. These were like lit candles. They had to climb all the way to the top of the steeple, and they had those 2 lanterns lit in the steeple for maybe 30 seconds. You know, we think that they just hung them there and left them there, but there were red coats everywhere, and if they had looked up and seen those, people would have hung. So the Patriots across the bay could see these two lights in the steeple, and they were communicating with the guys across the water, 1 if by land and 2 if by sea. And that's basically telling them, how are the redcoats coming? Are they coming along the land route, which is the route that Dawes rode, or are they coming by sea? Well, they were coming by sea. So 2 lanterns. So that actually started through the countryside saying that the regulars were out. They didn't say the British were coming. The British are coming. They were all British. They said the regulars are out. The regulars were the Redcoat Army. So they headed out. It's 13 miles to Lexington. Lexington is the first big town that you pass through, big being 800 people, that you pass through on the way to Concord. Concord's another 5 miles. So early in the morning, well, they left really late at night, but by 5 o'clock in the morning, if you need to get through, just feel free to walk through. Okay, that's fine. Early in the morning, the British column of 800 soldiers approached the town of Lexington. They were led by a young, brash Irish lieutenant who wanted to make a name for himself. And so as he pulls, his job was to lead these men out on the Lexington Green. Now, the Green was just a little park, probably not too much bigger than that, maybe twice as big as that little area over there. And on the Green stood Captain, this is where this comes in handy, Captain Parker, who is the head of the militia in Lexington, and he had 70 men out there. Of those 70 men, there were only 12 last names. They all knew each other. They all went to the same church. There was only one church in Lexington. They were all either kin or friends of kin or kin of kin. You get my message. Anyway, they knew each other very, very well. And he had those 70 men out there as a political protest because Paul Revere had come through and warned them that the regulars were out. So this lieutenant pulls the first 200 or so out of the column and on to Lexington Green. Now, Captain Parker had given his men their messages, or their orders, before the Redcoats had ever gotten there. He said, only shoot if they start it. Only return fire. Do not fire unless fired upon. But if they mean to have a war, let it begin right here. And that's when they started waiting. Well, they didn't have long to wait. Here comes 200, the first 200 or so, of those Redcoats onto the green. Well, Captain Parker is a smart enough old soldier to know that his men are completely outnumbered. You know, he's got 70 guys, and there are 200 there and another 600 out on the road. So he tells his men, said, y'all, let's live to fight another day. You know, we are totally outnumbered. Well, about this time, the young brashy lieutenant and Major Pitcairn are riding back and forth in front of our guys saying, you rebels, you fiends, lay down your guns and surrender. Well, Parker says, no, we're not going to do that. Don't lay down your guns, but let's turn around and go home, boys. We'll live to fight another day. So as they're walking off the green, a shot rings out. And those British soldiers fired into the backs of those retreating Lexington militia. What a scene that must have been. So the guy that was in charge of the Redcoats is Colonel Smith, and he's way at the back of the line. He didn't even know what's going on the green, but he hears shots fired and riding to the front to find out what's going on. So there the British are firing into the backs of those people, and then they did what the British Army was so good at doing. They lowered their bayonets and they charged. They followed them into the woods, into houses, into wherever they were, tried to kill them. So Smith rides to the front. When he gets onto the green, chaos has broken out, just complete chaos. So he grabs a drummer, because that's how they used to communicate, and he has them play to muster to get all the guys to stop what they're doing and come back to the green, which they did. Before they leave Lexington, he allows them a victory volley where they shoot their muskets into the air, and 3 huzzahs, huzzah, 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 celebrating the death. 8 dead, 17 wounded on Lexington Green. And then they head for Concord. So now in Concord, meanwhile in Concord, you got the militia. The militia were the family guys. You got the Minutemen. The Minutemen were the young single guys that could be ready in 30 minutes to get off and get all their stuff and get out of there. And then you have the alarm listers. They're the really, really old guys. They're like 55. You know, really, really old. And they're all meeting in town in Concord trying to figure out what they're going to do, because they've gotten word, and now they've gotten word that shots were fired in Lexington. So they discuss it. The militia wants to go up, wants to face everybody right there in town. The Minutemen want to go out and meet those red. The old guys said, you know, neither one of those is a very good idea. Town is no place to wage war. Let's go up onto our training hill called Punkatasset Hill, and we'll wait for more people to come. Because, you know, Revere got the word out, Dawes got the word out, and we're by morning, by the time this is all happening, there are 14,000 militia headed for Concord. Isn't that amazing? They didn't even have Twitter and Facebook. I wonder if we could get that many with Twitter and Facebook now. Yeesh, that's a scary thought. So they discuss it, and they decide they're going to do all 3. So the old guys go to Punkatasset Hill to wait. The militia stays in town because they're going to fight there. And the Minutemen go out to meet the Redcoats. So the Minutemen, young, remember, they're the young guys. They have their own drums and fifes, and they start marching down those Redcoats. And there's a long, long line of Redcoats. There are 800 Redcoats. So they keep marching, and then they just turn around and march back into town. The people in Concord actually said later that it was kind of funny watching their Minutemen lead the Redcoats into town. When they got to town, they found that the militia had seen the wisdom of getting out of town, so they all went to Punktasset Hill and began meeting all of the incoming militia there at Punktasset Hill. Now, let me tell you about Isaac Davis. Isaac Davis is the captain of the militia in Acton. Acton is like right up here, a couple miles from Concord. He's Smith. His guys are well trained, and they actually had bayonets on their muskets, which was unusual for our side. They also had matching coats and matching ammo bags. So they really looked like soldiers. Well, when his men got to his house in the middle of the night, well, probably 4 or 5 in the morning, they find that Isaac and Hannah are already awake. They'd been up all night taking care of 4 desperately ill children with scarlet fever. And with scarlet fever, you couldn't run them to the ER because there was no ER. And you couldn't call the doctor. Well, you could call a doctor. It might take a long time to get there, but he didn't have penicillin and all those things that we have now. What you did was you put cold rags on their heads and you prayed. And that's what they'd been doing up all night. His men get to his house, and they tell him that the alarm or the regulars are out and they're headed to Concord. He doesn't hesitate. He starts gathering his things. Hannah starts gathering food for 3 days for him. Some of his men actually come into his kitchen and raid the flour bin and put it in their hair because they wanted to look nice when they met those Redcoats. So they get ready to leave. He shoos the guys out. He's very, very quiet, Hannah said. But he gets to the door to leave, and he stops. And he slowly turns around to Hannah, and he says, "Take good care of the children." And then he steps out into history. Hannah said she had the worst feeling, you know that feeling, that she would never see Isaac again. On Punktasset Hill, and there are Redcoats below at the North Bridge. And those Redcoats are watching these militia up on the hill, and in town they have raided houses. They're bringing stuff out. They actually start a big fire, and they start throwing things like wooden plates, because you know you can use wooden plates in war, onto the fire. They chop down their Liberty Tree and put it on the fire. So from Punktasset Hill, our guys can see smoke rising from the town of Concord. And they say, you know, one of the young lieutenants, he was the lieutenant that led the Minutemen from Concord. They said he was handsome and he had a great smile and the people would follow him anywhere. Young ladies swooned. He goes to the major and says, "Major, sir, are we going to watch town down? Who will lead us into town?" Isaac Davis raises his hand and he says, "I have not a man who is afraid to go." And so they begin marching down the hill. Well, the Redcoats are like concerned because they're coming at them. So they fire a shot into the water to show that they're firing ball, those are bullets, and not just powder. Doesn't matter. Our guys keep coming down. The next shot the redcoats fire is up into our guys. And they killed 2. Well, at that point, our guys start returning fire, and within 2 minutes, half of the redcoats at the bottom of the hill are gone, dead. The rest have run. So they go back into town, the redcoats, and they get it all together. They 18 miles to walk to get back to Concord. They have not found any guns. They have not found any powder. The only thing they found was 1 cannon, and they disabled that. But so it's not been a great mission. They've shed first blood both in Lexington and in Concord. So they start heading back, marching back. Everything's going fine till they get to a place called Miriam's Corner. At Miriam's Corner, there's a little bridge that goes across a stream, real tiny stream. So it's a small bridge. And things with those 800 men start backing up. It's like when we go to Pensacola and they've closed one of the 2 lanes, and everything backs, or Hurlbert's getting out, or, well, anyway, you get what I'm saying. Things start backing up, and our minutes are following, and they're getting closer and closer and closer to the back of that column of redcoats. So the guys in the back of the column decide, they turn around and they take a firing stance. They're going to fire at the Minutemen. Now remember, I told you there were 14,000 militia headed that way. They are up on the hills and behind trees, and they are watching all this go down. And when they see those back redcoats turn around to fire at their kinsmen, their American kinsmen, they weren't kin, but they were kin in mission. They, for the first time that day, and arguably the first time in the whole war, we fired first. Well, from there all the way back to Boston, those redcoats are under continual. I'll show you how they did it in a minute. They get to Lexington, the redcoats get to Lexington, with those Minutemen and those militias right behind them. It was conceivable that they could have been overcome by our guys anytime, even there in Lexington. But no, as they're going through Lexington, cannon fire rings out. And huzzah! There are 1,000 reinforcements sent led by General Percy. So they get all these ragtag redcoats back into the group. They're tired, they're bloody, they ran out of water, a long time ago. They're out of ammunition. They're a mess. So Percy takes them in, and they start marching the 13 miles back to Boston. But like I said, they're under continual fire. What I need right now is I need all you CAR girls to come up here for just a second. Okay, so we're going to pretend we're the militia, all right? We've come from all over the place, okay? And there's a guy called General Heath who is just a smart guy. He's a farmer, but now he's a general. So he has this idea of this moving circle of fire. So everybody get up in a line right here, right next to me. Now, Christy, you come here and be a redcoat. Okay. All right, so redcoats are coming from over here. Okay. And you're going to march your 800 men right down the road here with all of these militia up on the hill. Okay, so here they come. So we're all going to fire at them as they go by, okay? And when they get about halfway, we're going to fire again. And then we're going to run quick like bunnies. Come on, let's go. And here they come again. And we're going to do the same thing all the way back to Boston. We're just going to keep circling forward to get them. You can sit back down. So, the redcoats do get back to Boston after dark. almost 24 hours after they left. But now Boston is surrounded. And this begins 8 long years of war for the liberty of our nation. And so that's the story of April 19th. Now I have one more quick story. Do you want to hear it? Yes? You vote yes? I know Pieces here. You sure? Okay. In a town called Menotomy, there was a guy that lived there that was 79 years old. His name was Samuel Whittemore. Whittemore had lots of kids and lots of grandkids, and Samuel Whittemore. He had gone off to the French and Indian War years earlier, and one time he came back with a French lieutenant's saber. And he used to show that sucker off. And people say, "Where'd you get that, Sam?" And he'd say, "Well, the former owner did not need it anymore." Which meant the former owner was dead. So he took it. Well, he also had a pair of matched dueling pistols. And he'd show them off. And they'd say, "Sam, where'd you get that?" The former owner passed away suddenly. So he's got these things, and he's on the road. The redcoats have gone through early in the morning. They have only one way back. He knew that they'd be back. And he'd heard that people were killed in Lexington, and people had been killed in all along the way. And he to let that redcoat army go by without a fight. And so he takes his musket and his cartridges, and he takes his lieutenant's saber and he tucks it into his belt, and he takes those 2 dueling pistols and he puts them in his waistband, and he goes out and he hides behind a stone wall. They have lots of those in the east. And as those redcoats start coming, he starts firing at them and picking them off with his musket. When he's out of ammo, he takes out his dueling pistols. Now they're getting close, and they say, "You know what? We have got to stop all of those men that are behind that wall." Well, it's only Samuel, but he's making good use of his weapons. So as they're coming closer to get those patriots that are behind that wall, he pulls out his muskets and he shoots at them. As they come even closer, he pulls out his saber, and they fire at him, and they hit him right in the side of the face, and down he goes. And they come to him to make sure he's dead, and wondering where all the rest of the guys are, but he's only there. And they take their bayonets and they thrust them into him 14 times. Well, the people of Menotomy, know what's happened. They can see what's happened to him, and they are so upset. But they can't do anything until the redcoats are gone. So as soon as those redcoats are gone, they go out to get the body of Samuel Whittemore. But what they find is that Samuel is not dead. So they get an old door, and they lift him carefully onto that door, and they to the docks, and they burst into his kitchen, and they clear off his table, and they put Samuel up there, and they said, "Fix him, Doc." Half of his face is gone, and he has 14
lacerations.
Holes. And he tells the people of Menotomy, "Folks, I know you all love Sam. We all love Sam, but Sam Whittemore, you just need to take him home, make him comfortable, because Sam Whittemore is going to die." And Sam Whittemore did die. 19 years later. Yay, Sam! Now I have one more thing I want to share with you guys. At Revive 1775, we have a mission. And that is to get the stories of people who gave up their lives, their honor, so that you could be free to get these stories out to everybody in the whole United States. So that's our mission. And I want to know if there's anyone here, kids or adults, that would like to join me in that mission. Put your hands up if you'd like to join in that mission. Okay, kids, you guys do. Do you guys want to help? Want to help? Want to help? It's easy. All right, those who want to help, step right up here and take a card. Take a card, any card. Pick a card. Pick a card. Pick a card. Awesome. Christy, did you get a card? All right, on that card is a story. That's your story. Well, I want you to kind of learn that story and tell everybody that you can find that little story. Can you do that?
That is neat.
I'll bet you can. If you want to embellish it more and learn more about these people, you can probably Google them and find out more about them. Actually, you can go to revive1775.com once we figure out why that site is down, and you can find more stories about these people. So you are part of the mission, and I say, huzzah! 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 Well done. Who is that guy? I guess did y'all want to know who that guy is?
Yeah.
So did Hannah Davis ever see her husband again?
No.
Well, she did when they brought him home for her to bury. Isaac Davis is now portrayed as the Minuteman. His statue is in Concord, and that is Isaac Davis. He was the first officer killed in action, killed on Punkatasset Hill at 10:30 that morning. Spread the word! Huzzah!
Okay, wait. There. Christy. Come on, girls. Come on. Great picture.
Oh, yeah, let's get a picture.
Go ahead, Dee.
Does anyone want to hold Isaac Davis here?
Oh, yes, that'd be great.
For me? Thank you.
Here's the picture.
Thank you. You're all so nice. It was my pleasure to come. Can I open it? I get to open it. I love presents. Let's see what it is. Ooh. Oh, how cool is that? It's a commemorative stamp from the battles of Lexington and Concord on the first day of issue. Oh my goodness, this is awesome! Thank you. Did you see it? Thank you so much. You couldn't have gotten me anything I loved more. Thank you. Awesome. Wow, I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Huzzah!
Okay, I believe our pizza has been delivered. Everybody has done such a great job. I'm so proud of you. And what a great meeting. You want to keep that one?
Ooh, you got Jack and John Parker. Nice. I'll remember that name.